Arcturians. I need to start with a direct question. Have you ever felt a constant ringing in your ears? Seen small flashes of light even in the dark? Or had that sudden dizziness that seems to disconnect you from your body for a few seconds? And let me bring you a data point that should light an alert in your galactic consciousness. Disorders related to the vestibular system and migraines affect millions of people every year. Migraine alone affects about 15% of the population, and problems linked to blood pressure and cerebral circulation are among the main risk factors for serious events like a stroke. Now I ask you with professional seriousness, what if these signs are not coincidence, nor just energetic sensitivity, but clear messages from your body as a multidimensional interface asking for regulation? Today, you will understand what is really happening when ringing, lights, and dizziness arise. No toxic mysticism, no exaggerations. With science, preventive medicine, and applied vibrational consciousness. If this type of content makes sense to you, like this video now, this helps bring preventive information to more Arcturians who need it. Comment. I am attentive to the signs. If you have felt at least one of these symptoms, and if you're not yet subscribed, subscribe, because ignoring early signs is exactly what leads thousands of people to find out too late. Take a deep breath. Let's start with the first point. 1. The sign you are ignoring. Arcturians, the biggest mistake I've seen in 30 years of following patients is this. The person feels something unusual, but because the symptom passes, they decide to ignore it. The ringing becomes normal. The dizziness becomes, it was just tiredness. The lights become, I must be sensitive. But the body doesn't create symptoms for no reason. What many people call an alteration in the biofield can, in clinical practice, be related to 3 major systems. Central nervous system, vestibular system, balance. Cardiovascular system. When these 3 begin to suffer small dysregulations, the first signs are usually subtle. Ringing, tinnitus for example, is often linked to neural hyperactivity in the auditory pathways. The brain, when under chronic stress, increases the level of electrical excitation. It's as if the internal volume is too high. Dizziness can arise when there is a momentary drop in pressure, an alteration in cerebral oxygenation, or a failure in the integration between vision, the inner ear, and proprioception. As for flashes of light, especially when they appear with a headache, they can be linked to the so-called neurological aura common in migraines. Now I want you to reflect with me. If your body is a multidimensional interface, it responds to emotional stress, sleep deprivation, silent inflammation, dehydration, excess of digital stimuli. In other words, it's not just energy, it's physiology reacting. And here is something urgent. Recurrent symptoms should never be romanticized. I know that in the spiritual world, there is a narrative of activation, light codes, frequency increase. But as a health professional, I need to be clear. An increase in frequency without regulation of the nervous system generates overload, not expansion. And an overloaded nervous system starts emitting signals. Let me ask you an important question to increase your preventive awareness. Are these episodes becoming more frequent, more intense, accompanied by nausea, blurred vision, or weakness? If the answer is yes, this is no longer something to ignore. The problem is that many highly sensitive Arcturians have a high tolerance for pain and discomfort. They keep functioning, they work, they take care of their families, and they put their own bodies last. And here is a direct, human alert. Great health events rarely start big. They start small, repetitive, silent. Persistent ringing can precede hearing or vascular problems. Recurrent dizziness can indicate autonomic dysregulation. Sudden lights can be related to neurological changes that need investigation. But calm down. Not everything is serious. And that is exactly why you need to understand what is common, what is regulatable, and what is a warning sign. In the next chapter, we will separate belief from science and understand in a clear and simplified way, what medicine actually says about this combination of symptoms. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, which of these three symptoms have you felt most frequently? Ringing, lights, or dizziness? What science actually says about these symptoms Arcturians? Now let's put our feet on the ground of physiology. When we talk about ringing, lights, and dizziness, we are talking about three systems that need to work in perfect synchronization. Central nervous system, vestibular system, balance. Cardiovascular system, if one of them fluctuates, the others feel it. Ringing, it's not from the ear, it's from the brain ringing, or tinnitus. Most of the time is not an external sound. It is spontaneous electrical activity in the auditory pathways. When there is chronic stress, noise exposure, nutrient deficiency, or inflammation, auditory neurons can become hyper-excitable. It's as if the brain increases the gain of the signal. Imagine a microphone turned on with no one speaking. It starts picking up background noise. The brain does something similar. Studies show that ringing is frequently linked to high-stress anxiety, changes in inner ear circulation, mild hearing loss, even imperceptible. And here enters an important point for your galactic consciousness. The more you focus on the ringing with fear, the more the limbic system amplifies the perception of it. In other words, fear increases the volume. Lights and flashes. The visual cortex on alert, seeing lights, bright spots, or streaks can have different causes. One of the most common is migraine with aura. Before the pain begins, there is an electrical wave called cortical spreading depression that travels through the brain. This temporary change in electrical activity can generate luminous spots, zigzag lines, areas of blurred vision, and it doesn't always come with a strong headache. Another possibility is changes in the retina or intraocular pressure, especially if the flashes appear in only one eye. That's why, Arcturians, it's not about denying the energetic dimension, it's about understanding that biology also speaks through electrical impulses. Your brain works by electrical signals. Your perception of light can literally be a neuroelectrical phenomenon. Dizziness, a misalignment of systems. Dizziness is one of the most complex symptoms because it can have multiple origins. Drop in blood pressure, dehydration, hypoglycemia. Anxiety, labyrinthitis. Vagus, nerve dysfunction. Balance depends on the integration between inner ear vision muscle receptors brain. If one of these sends distorted information, the body loses stability. It's as if the GPS loses signal for a few seconds. Now an important question. Have you noticed that dizziness often appears when you stand up quickly, go many hours without eating, or are under heavy stress? This is not a coincidence. It is physiology reacting. What science shows as a whole. When these three symptoms appear together, we are frequently facing overload of the autonomic nervous system, chronic low-grade inflammation, change in cerebral circulation. Metabolic dysregulation, it's not mystical, it's not weakness, it's a system asking for recalibration. And here enters something few talk about. The digital age has drastically increased visual, auditory, and cognitive stimuli. The modern brain is operating in constant hyperstimulation, and a hyperstimulated brain starts emitting signals. In the next chapter, we will enter the true protagonist behind all this, the nervous system in overload. Because, Arcturians, when your internal frequency is on permanent alert, your body starts emitting noise. Nervous system, overload, the true protagonist Arcturians. If there is a commander behind ringing, lights, and dizziness in most modern cases, its name is dysregulated autonomic nervous system. And here is something that might completely change your perception. You are not getting fragile, you are getting overloaded. Sympathetic vs. Parasympathetic. The invisible. War. Your autonomic nervous system has two major modes. Sympathetic, alert, fight, flight. Parasympathetic, rest, digestion, regeneration. The problem? A large part of adult Arcturians are living in chronic sympathetic mode. Negative news, financial pressure, Excessive screens, poor sleep, inflammatory diet, constant family responsibility. The body enters alert mode and never leaves. When this happens, heart rate rises, muscle tension increases, peripheral circulation changes, cerebral electrical activity intensifies. And the result? Ringing can arise, dizziness can appear, visual changes can happen. Not because you are activating light codes, but because your system is trying to survive. Cortisol. The hormone that alters your biological frequency, cortisol, is essential. It wakes you up in the morning, maintains energy and focus. But when it remains elevated for weeks or months, it begins to alter cerebral blood flow, reduce deep sleep quality, increase systemic inflammation, intensify sensory perception. Have you noticed that the ringing gets louder at night? This happens because, in the silence, the alert brain amplifies internal signals. The body tries to rest, but the brain remains vigilant. It's like trying to turn off a computer that is running 50 programs at the same time. Vagus nerve, the forgotten regulator. The vagus nerve is one of the most important structures in modern medicine, and almost no one talks about it. It regulates heartbeat, blood pressure, digestion, inflammatory response. Feeling of internal safety. When the vagus nerve is weakened by chronic stress, the body loses stability. And then symptoms arise like sensation of floating, dizziness when standing up, palpitations, sense of disconnection. Arcturians, this is not spiritual weakness. It is physiology asking for regulation. Digital hyperstimulation. The new epidemic. How much time a day do you spend looking at screens? Cell phone, computer, television, blue light, infinite scrolling. The bombardment of information keep your prefrontal cortex in constant activation. This increases sympathetic activity, and a dominant sympathetic system starts to produce cervical tension, which can generate dizziness, vasoconstriction, which alters circulation, increased auditory sensitivity. The body as a multidimensional interface needs a pause. Without a pause, there is noise. The mistake almost everyone makes, ignoring mild signs. The person only seeks help when dizziness becomes incapacitating, ringing becomes unbearable, headache becomes chronic, but prevention starts at the first sign. And here is something I want you to record. The nervous system does not collapse overnight. It wears down progressively. If you want longevity, you need to learn to regulate your physiological frequency daily. In the next chapter, we will talk about something extremely common and frequently neglected: drop in blood pressure, glucose, and cerebral oxygenation. Because sometimes what seems spiritual is simply dysregulated metabolism. Drop in blood pressure, glucose, and cerebral oxygenation. Arcturians. Now let's talk about something simple, direct, and often neglected. Your brain is extremely sensitive to a lack of fuel. It represents about 2% of body weight, but consumes approximately 20% of the body's energy. This means that any small drop in blood pressure, glucose levels, oxygenation, hydration can generate immediate symptoms. And guess which ones? Dizziness, vision, darkening, luminous spots, sensation of floating, transient ringing. It's not mystical, it's biochemistry. Blood pressure. Drop. The brain loses flow for seconds. Have you ever stood up quickly from the bed or sofa and felt the world spin? This is called postural hypertension. When you stand up abruptly, blood flows down to the legs. If the cardiovascular system doesn't compensate fast enough, there is a momentary drop in cerebral perfusion, and the brain reacts. There can be darkening of vision, bright spots, fainting sensation, brief ringing. This is a warning that your autonomic system may not be regulating well. And here goes something important. Mild dehydration is already enough to worsen this condition. Many adults live slightly dehydrated every day and think it's normal. Glucose. Without energy, no stability. Now imagine going many hours without eating, or consuming only simple carbohydrates that spike and crash rapidly. The brain depends on stable glucose. When it drops fast, symptoms arise: dizziness, mild confusion, feeling of unreality, tremor palpitation. Some Arcturians interpret this as a frequency change, but many times it is just reactive hypoglycemia. And here enters a common error: drinking coffee on an empty stomach, skipping meals, and thinking you are activating energy. In practice, you are stressing the adrenal axis. Shallow breathing. The oxygen that doesn't arrive, short, fast, and chest breathing, common in anxious people, alters the balance of CO2 in the blood. This can cause dizziness, tingling, fainting sensation, pressure in the head. Have you noticed that in moments of stress your breathing shortens? The brain is highly sensitive to the variation of blood gases. Dysregulated breathing alters perception. Here enters something powerful. Regulating breathing can reduce dizziness in a few minutes. It's not magic, it's applied physiology. Minerals and balance. Another neglected point: electrolytes. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium are fundamental for electrical conduction and fluid balance. Low levels, whether due to inadequate diet, excess sweat, or exaggerated salt restriction, can generate instability, and the body responds with symptoms. Your biofield is not failing, your metabolism may be lacking. When to be on alert now: maximum attention. If dizziness is accompanied by weakness on one side of the body, difficulty speaking, persistent double vision, sudden and intense headache, this is not a video to keep watching. This is a medical emergency. Prevention is awareness, but responsibility is also quick action. Arcturians, do you perceive how intelligent the body is? It emits signs before entering collapse, and many times, small corrections solve big symptoms. In the next chapter, we will differentiate something essential: migraine with aura, labyrinthitis, or something more serious, because knowing how to distinguish saves time, and sometimes saves lives. Migraine with aura, labyrinthitis, or something more serious. Arcturians. Here we enter an extremely important part. Not every ringing is the same. Not every dizziness has the same origin. Not every light you see is an activation. Knowing how to differentiate is preventive maturity. Let's organize this with clinical clarity. 1. Migraine with aura. The brain in an electrical wave migraine with aura can start with luminous spots, zigzag lines, partial loss of the visual field, mild numbness on one side of the face, or arm, momentary difficulty speaking. This phase usually lasts between 5 and 60 minutes. Afterwards, pain may come, or sometimes not. The cause involves a temporary change in cerebral electrical activity. It's like a wave crossing the cortex, factors that increase risk. Sleep deprivation, accumulated stress, dehydration, excess of screens, hormonal fluctuations. Now an honest question: do you notice that these episodes appear after intense days? That is already a pattern. 2. Labyrinthitis and vestibular dysfunctions. The term labyrinthitis is used a lot, sometimes even too much. In practice, many dizzinesses are caused by benign positional vertigo, vestibular inflammation, changes in the inner ear, typical characteristics. Real sensation that the environment is spinning, nausea, worsening when moving the head, duration of seconds to hours. Ringing can accompany it, but not always. Here we are not talking about energy. We are talking about microscopic crystals in the inner ear that get out of place. Yes, that's right. Small calcium particles can shift and alter the perception of movement. Simple, mechanical, treatable. 3. When could it be something more serious? Now, Arcturians, maximum attention. There are situations that require urgent investigation. Sudden and intense dizziness without explanation. Difficulty walking, speech alteration. Loss of strength, headache, different from all others in your life. pulsatile ringing synchronized with heartbeats. These can be signs of vascular problems, stroke, relevant neurological changes. It's not to generate fear, it's to generate responsibility. Ignoring clear signs is not expanded consciousness, it's negligence. The error of spiritual self-diagnosis, one of the biggest risks in the vibrational field, is labeling everything as awakening, frequency elevation, activated code. As a health professional, I need to say with respect, expansion of consciousness does not replace a clinical exam. You can have galactic consciousness, but you still live in a biological body that needs medical care when necessary. And that does not diminish your spirituality. It strengthens your stellar intelligence applied to matter. How to differentiate in practice? Ask yourself, does it last seconds or hours? Is it related to head movement? Does it come after stress? Does it come after prolonged fasting? Is it getting more frequent? Patterns matter. The body leaves tracks, and when you learn to observe, you gain preventive power. In the next chapter, we will talk about something silent, but extremely relevant: chronic inflammation and nutritional deficiencies that alter cerebral electrical conduction. Because sometimes the problem is not big, it's accumulated deficiency. Silent inflammation and nutritional deficiencies are Arcturians. Now we enter a point that almost no one connects with: ringing, lights, and dizziness. Chronic low-grade inflammation. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't appear in a dramatic way, but it silently alters your biological frequency. And when inflammation goes up, neurological stability falls. What is silent inflammation? We are not talking about an acute infection. We are talking about a continuous state caused by excess sugar, ultra-processed foods, oxidized fats, sleep deprivation, chronic stress, sedentary lifestyle. This type of inflammation alters endothelial function, blood vessels, nervous system regulation, neurotransmitter production, and this can generate auditory sensitivity, greater perception of ringing, vestibular instability, recurrent headaches. Your body, as a multidimensional interface, responds to what you ingest. Food is biochemical information. Magnesium, the forgotten mineral. Magnesium participates in more than 300 reactions in the body. It regulates muscle relaxation, electrical conduction, neuronal stability, vagus nerve function. Low levels can contribute to migraine, muscle spasms, anxiety, ringing, and here goes something worrying. A large part of the adult population has insufficient magnesium intake, depleted soil, poor diet, high stress. All of this drains reserves: vitamin B12 and iron. Oxygen for the brain. B12 deficiency can cause dizziness, tingling, fatigue, cognitive difficulty. Iron is essential for oxygen transport. Without adequate oxygen, the brain reacts with weakness, lightheadedness, occasional ringing. Many adult women have low ferritin and don't even know it, and the symptom is interpreted as low energy. It's physiology asking for support. Chronic dehydration. I'll be direct. If your urine is frequently dark, you are probably dehydrated. Mild dehydration can cause headache, dizziness, drop in blood pressure, mental fatigue. And do you know what the most common mistake is? Replacing water with coffee. Excess caffeine can worsen anxiety, ringing, and instability. The body needs water to maintain electrical and vascular balance. Gut and brain. The invisible axis. Intestinal inflammation alters neurotransmitters. The gut produces a large part of the body's serotonin. When there is dysbiosis, the nervous system suffers, and this can intensify anxiety, hypervigilance, sensory sensitivity. See how everything connects? Biofield is not something separate from the body. It emerges from physiological functioning. When you improve metabolism, you improve perception. The error of supplementing without criteria. Another important alert. Don't just start taking everything you see on the internet. Excess also generates imbalance. The ideal is medical evaluation and exams, Galactic consciousness also means clinical responsibility. Common mistakes that worsen the condition and almost no one notices. Arcturians. Now I'm going to be direct with you. Often the symptom doesn't get worse because of the disease, it gets worse because of habits. And here are the most common mistakes I've seen for decades in clinical practice. If you identify with any of them, it's not guilt, it's an opportunity for adjustment. 1. Ignoring the first signs. I'll look into this later. It must be just stress. It will pass. It might even pass. But if it comes back, the body is insisting. Ignoring recurrent signs turns something simple into something chronic. Prevention starts at the first repeated pattern. 2. Living on coffee and adrenaline coffee on an empty stomach. More coffee in the afternoon. Artificial energy to compensate for bad nights. Excess caffeine can increase ringing, intensify anxiety, alter blood pressure, worsen sleep quality. And here goes an important point. Poor sleep amplifies sensory perception. A poorly rested brain is more reactive. You think you are raising your frequency, but you might be exhausting your nervous system. 3. Screens. Until late at night. Blue light reduces melatonin production. Melatonin is not just a sleep hormone, it is a brain antioxidant. Less melatonin, more oxidative stress. The result? More headache, more instability, more difficulty regulating. And there are still people who sleep with their cell phone next to their head. Arcturians. Your body needs real darkness to regenerate. 4. Skipping meals and calling it spiritual fasting. Fasting can be beneficial when done with guidance, but skipping meals in a chaotic way can generate glucose drop, irritability, dizziness, palpitation. And then you interpret it as energetic sensitivity. It's not sensitivity, it's unstable metabolism. 5. Constant self-medication. Frequent pain relievers. Anti-inflammatories without guidance. Dizziness medicine repeatedly. This can mask important symptoms. And masking is not treating. In the long run, it can even worsen the condition. 6. Silent sedentary lifestyle. Sitting all day alters circulation. Vagal tone metabolic regulation. Movement is a regulator of the nervous system. Your body was made to circulate energy and blood. Without movement, there is physiological stagnation. 7. Not investigating when necessary. There is a balance between paranoia and negligence. If the symptoms are frequent, intense, different from the usual pattern, progressive, investigating is maturity. Simple exams can bring clarity and peace of mind. Galactic consciousness also includes medical responsibility. What changes everything? Small, consistent adjustments. It's not a big mystical transformation, it's a regulated routine, and in the next chapter, we will organize this in a practical and applicable way. How to regulate your biological frequency in daily life. No exaggeration, no extremism, with science and applied stellar intelligence. Intelligent hydration and electrolytes. Start the day with water. Before coffee. 300 to 500 ml upon waking up. Observe urine color. Ideal, light yellow. If your blood pressure is usually low, talk to your doctor about appropriate sodium adjustment. Mild dehydration already alters cerebral circulation. Water is electrical regulation. Nervous system regulation. In 5 minutes, simple exercise. 6. Breathing. Inhale through the nose for a count of 4. Exhale slowly for a count of 6. Repeat for 5 minutes. This stimulates the vagus nerve and reduces sympathetic hyperactivity. It can decrease dizziness related to anxiety in minutes. This is not esoteric. It is applied neurophysiology. Morning sunlight. Exposure to natural light in the early hours of the day helps to regulate circadian rhythm, improve nighttime melatonin production, reduce dysregulated cortisol. 10 to 20 minutes. Already make a difference. Your body needs synchronization with the solar cycle. This is vibrational medicine applied to real biology. 4. Glycemic. Stability, avoid coffee alone on an empty stomach, large sugar spikes. Prefer protein for breakfast, fibers, good fats. This reduces reactive hypoglycemia, a common cause of dizziness. Stable energy, stable perception. Reduction of nighttime stimuli, avoid screens. 60 minutes before sleeping, dark room, pleasant temperature, consistent schedule. Deep sleep is when the brain cleans metabolic waste. Without sleep, there is no recalibration. 6. Daily movement, light walk of 20 to 30 minutes improves circulation, increases heart rate variability, reduces inflammation, regulates mood. Your body was not made for chronic immobility. Movement is alignment. Responsible investigation if symptoms persist. Blood count, ferritin B12, glycemia. Thyroid function, cardiovascular evaluation. Prevention is not supposition, it is verification. Clinical summary for you to take today. Ringing can be neural hyperactivity. Lights can be a transient neurological phenomenon. Dizziness can be circulatory, metabolic, or vestibular. Most of the time, the body is asking for regulation, not panic, but warning signs should never be ignored. Your body is a multidimensional interface, but it continues to be biological. The better you take care of matter, the more stable your perception becomes. Conclusion, Arcturians. I want you to leave this video with a new mentality. Don't romanticize symptoms. Don't ignore signs. Don't enter into unnecessary fear. Observe patterns, regulate habits, investigate when necessary. Longevity is not luck, it is consistency. If this content brought clarity, like it now, this helps spread preventive awareness. Comment: I choose to regulate my frequency if you have decided to take better care of your nervous system. Share with someone in your family who always complains about dizziness or ringing, and if you're not yet subscribed, subscribe, because applied knowledge saves years of life. YouTube description: ringing in the ears, flashes of light, and dizziness can be signs of dysregulation of the nervous system, circulation, or metabolism. In this video, we explain in a clear and scientific way what might really be happening and how to regulate your biological frequency with practical strategies. If you seek preventive health, longevity, and balance of the body as a multidimensional interface, this content is for you. Timestamp 0, introduction 03.40, the sign you are ignoring. 8.30, what science says. 14.20, nervous system in overload. 20.10, pressure, glucose, and oxygenation. 24.50, migraine, labyrinth, or something more serious. 8.40, inflammation and nutritional deficiencies. Taiwan. 50, mistakes that worsen symptoms. 50, how to regulate your biological frequency. 50, conclusion. Hashtags: preventive health, nervous system, tinnitus, dizziness, migraine, longevity, integrative medicine, Arcturians.